Welcome, deep divers. Today we're going to be taking a closer look at a book that's all about, well, life, the game of life and how to play it, by Florence Scovel Shinn. It was published way back in 1925, but still resonates today.
I know. It's amazing how timely her work feels almost 100 years later. Shinn was really ahead of her time, teaching these spiritual principles decades before folks like Neville Goddard became well-known.
Definitely a pioneer. And she doesn't beat around the bush. Right off the bat, she lays out her main idea. Life isn't some battle we're fighting, it's a game. But to play it well, we have to understand the rules. And those rules, according to Shinn, are all about spiritual law.
It's such a simple concept, but it totally changes how you look at things, doesn't it? Instead of feeling like you're constantly struggling or that things are happening to you, you realize you have choices, you can strategize, just like in a game.
Right. You're not just a pawn being pushed around. So how about we break down some of those rules of the game? Shinn talks a lot about the power of the subconscious mind. She even tells this story about a woman who, as a child, would pretend she was a widow, and then later in life she actually became one. A little creepy, but makes you think, right?
It's a powerful example, isn't it? It shows how our thoughts, even those unconscious ones buried deep down, can shape our reality. The subconscious doesn't really know the difference between what's real and what's imagined. So if you keep feeding it negative thoughts or fears, guess what? It's going to try and make those happen.
So are we saying just thinking positive thoughts is the key here?
Positive thinking is great, don't get me wrong, but it's more about working with your subconscious actively, understanding it. Think of it like this powerful tool that most of us don't even realize we have. Shinn gives us a framework for figuring out how our minds work so we can actually use them to create the life we want.
Okay, I'm liking where this is going. And a big part of that framework, right, is understanding these three parts of the mind. Subconscious, conscious, and superconscious. I'm guessing most people have heard of the first two, but superconscious, that's a bit more out there. Can you break those down for us?
Sure. So the subconscious, that's like this huge storehouse, right? It's got all your memories, all the things you believe, even stuff you don't remember consciously anymore. It's powerful, but it's often running in the background.
Got it. So how do we tap into this powerhouse if we're not even aware of it most of the time?
That's where the conscious mind comes in. It's like the captain of the ship trying to steer all that subconscious energy in the right direction towards your goals. But the problem is, our conscious mind often gets distracted. Fears, doubts, limiting beliefs, all that stuff throws it off course.
It's like trying to sail a ship with a broken compass.
Exactly. And that's where the superconscious comes in. Shinn calls it the God mind. It's pure potential, the source of inspiration and intuition. And she says it holds our divine design, like this unique blueprint for each of our lives.
Hold on. If there's this perfect plan for each of us, why aren't we all living it? What's the missing link?
The problem is, often, our conscious mind blocks it. We get so stuck in our worries and doubts, we shut out all that superconscious wisdom. It's like having a race car, but being too scared to drive it.
So how do we get out of our own way and tap into this incredible superconscious power? How do we actually start living our divine design?
Well, Shinn says one of the most powerful ways is through the spoken word. She believed our words have real creative power. What we say, we create.
Whoa, hold up. You're saying we should be super careful about what we say all the time?
Yeah.
Even like jokes or offhand comments? That sounds exhausting.
It's not about being scared to talk or walking on eggshells. It's about being aware of the power your words carry. Think of them like seeds you plant in your mind. What kind of seeds do you want growing there? Abundance, joy, success? Or are you planting fear and lack?
It's like that example Shinn gives about the man who always complained about missing his car, while his daughter always seemed to catch it. It's like their words were shaping their reality.
It's a classic illustration. It's not just the things we say out loud, but even those thoughts in our heads. We're constantly affirming something, whether we realize it or not.
Okay, so if our thoughts and words are that powerful, are we saying we could just speak things into existence? Like poof magic?
Shinn believed it was possible. And she tells lots of stories about people who did just that, attracting wealth, healing themselves, finding love. It's about aligning your words with the reality you want to experience.
This is blowing my mind a little, I gotta admit. So how do we start using our words consciously to create the life we want? Where do we even begin?
It all starts with paying attention. Listen to that inner voice, that self-talk. What kind of things are you saying to yourself all day long? Are they positive and uplifting, or are you putting yourself down?
So step one is basically becoming aware of our own thoughts. Sounds simple enough, but I'm guessing it's harder than it seems.
It definitely takes effort, but just like any skill, the more you practice, the easier it gets. And honestly, the payoff is huge. Imagine being able to create your own reality just by being mindful of what you say and think.
That sounds pretty amazing. But let's be real for a sec. Life isn't always sunshine and roses. What about when things go wrong? How do we deal with challenges and setbacks if we're supposed to be all about positive thinking and speaking things into existence?
That's a great question. And it brings us to another one of Shinn's key principles, the law of non-resistance.
Okay, I'm all ears. What is non-resistance and how does it work?
It's a little counterintuitive at first. Basically, it means when you resist something, you're actually giving it more power. Think about trying to push against a river current. You're just going to get tired and swept away.
So are you saying we should just go with the flow all the time, never stand up for ourselves or try to change things?
Not exactly. It's not about being passive. It's about surrendering to something bigger than yourself, trusting that the universe has a plan, even when things feel chaotic.
So more like letting go of the need to control every little thing.
Yes. And trusting that even challenges are leading us somewhere. Shinn tells a story about a woman who was in a really tough spot financially, and someone was going to loan her money, but not until the first of the month. She needed it sooner, but instead of trusting it would work out, she started worrying and visualizing what she'd say if she couldn't pay.
So she was basically mentally preparing for the worst case scenario, even though that's not what she wanted.
Exactly. She was creating resistance, which almost cost her the money. Her cousin called the very next day, ready to give her the loan, and she almost talked him out of it because she was so focused on her fear.
Wow, talk about self-sabotage.
It's a classic example of how resistance just makes things harder. When we can let go and trust, things often work out much more smoothly.
Okay, so non-resistance is about surrendering control and trusting in something bigger than ourselves. It sounds like a powerful concept, but honestly, it makes me a little nervous to just let go like that.
I get it. It's a big shift. But think about all the energy you waste trying to control things that are out of your hands. Non-resistance frees up that energy to focus on what you can control, your thoughts and actions.
This whole conversation is making me think about how often I resist things in my own life. I'm starting to see how that resistance just creates more stress and frustration.
We all do it. But the more we practice non-resistance, the more peace and ease we experience.
I'm definitely going to be thinking about this more. It feels like a whole new way of looking at things. This deep dive is already making me question so much about how I approach life. We've covered the power of the subconscious mind, the importance of choosing our words carefully, and now this concept of non-resistance. It's a lot to take in. What else can we learn from Shinn about navigating life's game with more skill and grace?
Well, one thing she talks about a lot is the importance of love, or as she calls it, goodwill. It's a principle that unlocks a whole world of possibilities.
Okay, I like the sound of that. Love is always a good topic. So tell me more about how Shinn viewed love and its role in the game of life.
For her, love wasn't just a feeling. It was like this powerful energy that could transform everything. And it's not just about romantic love. It's more like compassion, forgiveness, just having goodwill towards everyone.
So like a universal kind of love.
Exactly. It's about understanding that holding on to anger or resentment only hurts you in the end. It blocks all that good from flowing into your life.
This makes me think of that example she gives about the woman who was healed from a skin disease after she learned to forgive the man who had wronged her.
Powerful, isn't it? It shows how transformative love can be. And sometimes the people who hurt us most are the ones who need our love the most.
That's deep. It really makes you think about how we often hold on to grudges without realizing how much they're hurting us.
It's a practice, just like non-resistance. It's not always easy, but the more we can open our hearts, the more beauty and wonder we experience in life.
I feel like we've given our listeners a lot to chew on already. We've talked about the power of our thoughts and words, the importance of non-resistance, and now this incredible power of love. I feel like we've only scratched the surface of Shinn's wisdom.
We've definitely covered a lot of ground. Maybe it's a good time to pause and let everything sink in before we dive into more. What's resonating with you the most so far?
You know, as we're talking about all this, it strikes me that Shinn's approach is really about taking responsibility, owning your experiences, which is great, but kind of scary too, right?
It's true. It takes courage to really look inside and see those beliefs and patterns that might be holding you back. But Shinn gives us a really cool tool for navigating all that inner stuff, intuition.
Intuition, that gut feeling, the inner knowing that sometimes just pops up out of nowhere. How does Shinn see intuition fitting into this whole game of life thing?
She believed it's like a direct line to that superconscious mind we were talking about, that source of wisdom that's always there, like having a built-in GPS guiding you towards what's best for you.
Okay, I like that analogy. But how do you know if it's really intuition talking or just your ego messing with you, like wishful thinking or fears disguised as inner guidance?
That's the tricky part, right? It takes practice to tell the difference. Shinn talks about learning to discern between that ego voice, which is often all about fear and what you want, and the higher self, which is always rooted in love and wisdom.
So it's like learning to recognize the different voices in your head, which honestly sounds kind of crazy, but I guess it makes sense. It's like that story Shinn tells about the woman who suddenly felt like she had to go to a bakery, even though it made no logical sense.
Yeah, and when she finally went, she ended up meeting someone who needed her help, someone she wouldn't have met otherwise. It's like the universe was setting up that whole encounter, using her intuition as the guide.
That's wild. It's like some kind of cosmic scavenger hunt. And we get these clues, but sometimes we overthink them or just ignore them completely.
We do. Which is why Shinn says it's so important to pay attention to those nudges even when they seem weird or inconvenient. You never know where they might lead. This whole idea of intuition ties in with another one of her big concepts, perfect self-expression, that we each have this unique divine design for our lives.
How do you figure out what your divine design is? It's like some hidden treasure map you got to find, or what?
It's less about searching and more about aligning. It's about recognizing those unique gifts and talents you have, the things that make you feel truly alive. Shinn believed those passions and interests are often clues to your divine design.
So it's about paying attention to what lights you up, what you're naturally drawn to, even if it doesn't make sense to everyone else.
Exactly. Have the courage to follow those sparks, even if they lead you off beaten path. Like that story about the man who felt guided to buy an expensive coat, even though his logical mind was telling him it was crazy.
And it ended up being this turning point that led to more abundance in his life, right?
Exactly. Sometimes the most illogical choices turn out to be the ones that align you with your purpose. Trust that gut feeling. But what if you've been playing the game, so to speak, with all this negative self-talk and limiting beliefs? How do you rewrite those old scripts?
That's a good question. I know Shinn talks about denials and affirmations. Those seem to be everywhere these days.
They are. And for good reason, she believed they were super powerful for reprogramming your subconscious mind. Denials are about consciously rejecting those old beliefs that don't serve you anymore. Like, nope, not buying that anymore. That's not my truth.
Okay, so you're basically taking back your power by refusing to give those negative beliefs any more energy. What about the affirmations part?
Affirmations are about stating those positive truths you do want to embody, the beliefs that support the reality you're trying to create.
Can you give us an example of how that works?
Sure. Let's say you struggle with self-doubt, and you often think, I'm not good enough. You could deny that by saying something like, I deny the belief that I'm not good enough. I am a divine creation worthy of love and abundance.
So you're replacing that old negative thought with something positive and empowering. I like it.
Right. And then you'd follow that with an affirmation that states the truth you want to embrace. So instead of, I'm not good enough, you could affirm, I am capable, talented, and worthy of success.
It's like you're weeding out the negativity and planting seeds of positivity instead. I love that imagery.
It is like that. The more you practice, the more you shift that subconscious programming. It's like changing the station on your mental radio from one playing negativity to one broadcasting hope and possibility.
Shinn gives a bunch of specific affirmations in her book, right? Are there any that really stand out to you?
Oh, there are so many good ones. I love the one for prosperity. God is my unfailing supply, and large sums of money come to me quickly, under grace, in perfect ways. It's a great reminder that abundance is available to everyone.
And she has one for health too, right?
Yes. This one always gets me. Divine love floods my consciousness with health, and every cell in my body is filled with light. It's like a beautiful visualization of healing.
I'm definitely writing those down.
Yeah.
But it's not just about repeating the words, right? It's got to be more than that.
You got it.
Yeah.
It's about feeling the truth of those affirmations, believing them in your heart. Your emotions amplify the power of your words.
So it's about aligning your thoughts, your words, and your feelings. It's like you have to embody the change you want to see.
That's it. It's about becoming a conscious creator of your own reality. This whole conversation is making me appreciate Shinn's work on a whole new level. It's not just about positive thinking, it's about understanding these deeper principles and actually using them to create the life you want.
It's like leveling up your game. Literally. But it's also a journey, right? It's not like you just read the book and suddenly everything's perfect.
Totally. It's a process of self-discovery, a lifelong exploration.
Speaking of exploration, I feel like we've been on quite the adventure with Shinn's ideas today, but I have a feeling there's still more to discover. What else can we glean from her wisdom as we keep delving into the game of life and how to play it?
Well, one thing she emphasizes is what she calls scientific prayer. It's about aligning your thoughts and actions with those spiritual laws that govern the universe.
Scientific prayer. Okay, now I'm really intrigued. Does this involve lab coats and equations?
Not quite. It's more about approaching prayer with a deeper understanding of how these spiritual principles actually work. It's realizing we're not separate from the divine, but part of it.
So it's less about begging for stuff and more about aligning yourself with a higher power.
Exactly. It's co-creating with the universe. Shinn believed that when you pray scientifically, you're tapping into this infinite power that flows through you.
So it's a more active approach to prayer where you're actually participating in the manifestation process.
That's it. It's aligning your thoughts, your words, your actions with what you want and then trusting the universe to deliver.
This is reminding me of that quote from Shinn, "Your word is your wand." It's about understanding we have this incredible power to shape our reality through our thoughts and words.
Absolutely. It's remembering you're not just a passive bystander in life, you're an active participant. And you get to choose the thoughts, beliefs, and actions that shape your experience.
So instead of, oh, woe is me, why does this always happen to me? It's more like, okay, what am I creating here? How can I shift things to get a different outcome?
That's the power of playing the game consciously. Taking responsibility and recognizing your own power to change things.
This is seriously empowering stuff. It feels like a weight's been lifted off my shoulders. I don't have to be a victim of circumstance. I can choose to create a life that I love, that's in line with my deepest desires and my divine design.
That's the beauty of Shinn's work. It helps you step into your own power and create a life that's truly fulfilling.
I'm feeling inspired and ready to put all this into practice. Any final words of wisdom from Shinn before we wrap up our deep dive?
She reminds us to be a joyful worker and not a slave to the grind. It's about approaching everything in life, your work, relationships, everything, with a sense of joy, purpose, and enthusiasm.
I love that. Life isn't meant to be a constant struggle. It's an adventure, a joyous exploration of your potential. It's playing the game with your whole heart.
And isn't that what it's all about? Living a life filled with joy, purpose, and wonder.
Absolutely. Well, on that note of joyful exploration, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive into Florence Scovel Shinn's The Game of Life and How to Play It. What are your final thoughts on her work, and what do you hope our listeners take away from all this?
Wow, this deep dive has really flown by. Time just seems to disappear when you're having fun, right?
It does. And it's amazing to think how relevant Shinn's work still is, after all these years. It's like she tapped into something timeless.
Absolutely. It's a testament to those universal spiritual principles, right? They've been around forever, but Shinn just had this way of making them so practical and down to earth.
And engaging. Her writing is so witty, it's like you're chatting with a wise friend who just happens to have all these amazing insights.
Totally. No preachiness, no judgment, just pure wisdom and encouragement to play the game of life with more awareness and intention. So, as we wrap things up, what stands out to you as the biggest takeaway from this deep dive? That's a good question. I think for me, it's that realization that we're not just victims of circumstance, We actually have the power to shape our own reality. But we have to understand the rules of the game first.
I love that. It's about taking responsibility for your own experiences, recognizing that you have choices.
Exactly. And that's where all those techniques Shinn talks about come in. The power of your words, non-resistance, denials and affirmations, intuition aligning with your divine design. They're all tools for becoming a conscious creator.
So for our listeners who are feeling all fired up and ready to put these principles into practice, where would you suggest they start?
I always say start with awareness. Just pay attention to yourself. Notice that inner voice, how you react to things, the patterns that keep showing up. What are the thoughts and beliefs that are shaping your experiences right now?
Become an observer of your own mind.
Yeah, it's like taking inventory before you start planting a garden. See what's already growing there, and then experiment. Try out some of Shinn's techniques. Pick one that resonates and see what happens.
Maybe start with a simple affirmation that speaks to you. Or try practicing non-resistance the next time you're faced with a challenge.
Exactly. And don't get too caught up in doing it right. Just approach it with curiosity and see what you discover. It's a journey, not a destination, right?
Right. There will be ups and downs, moments of clarity and moments of confusion. That's all part of the process.
But the more you play the game consciously, the more you'll see the magic start to unfold.
Well, I think we've given our listeners a lot to ponder today. It's been such a rich and inspiring exploration of Florence Scovel Shinn's wisdom.
It's a book that keeps on giving. I highly recommend revisiting it from time to time. You always discover something new.
Definitely. And for our listeners, we encourage you to continue your own deep dive into this fascinating material. There's so much to uncover.
And remember, life is a game, but it's a game we can win. Understand the rules, master the techniques, and play with intention and joy.
So get out there, deep divers, and start playing to win. Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep playing with heart.